Hello, and thanks for joining this Help New Mexico CAP60 training. Today we will be covering Part 1 of the client intake process. A few things to remember before we get started. This process can be time-consuming. Please set aside enough time so that you are entering the client information accurately. There is a lot of client information to enter. Make sure you have all of the documents you need before you get started. Although not all of the information is required, please be sure to include as much information as possible. Help New Mexico has a lot of programs and promotes wraparound services. Keep an eye out for additional programs that can benefit your client. Let's take a look at the overall intake process. Step 1. Log into the CAP60 database and search for the client in the existing client list or the front desk list. Checking the database to ensure that the client is not already in our system helps to decrease duplicate entries. Step 2. Add the client's personal and household information into the new client intake fields. During this process, we will be adding the following: new head of household information, family members, family characteristics and needs, employment information, eligibility income information, referrals, and of course we will be checking the program eligibility status. Step 3. Add the case information, run the audit function, and save the new client entry. During this process, we will be adding the following: new case information, documents and services, program goals, family goals into the case, print program goals for client files, and audit and correct the entry. This is an overview of the entire client intake process. Just a quick note, returning clients will need to be reviewed every time they apply for services. All household and profile information must be updated, and another audit will need to be completed. This will ensure that all of the client information we have is up to date and accurate. Step 1. Log into the CAP60 database and search for the client in the existing client or front desk list. Let's start by searching the existing client list. First, you're going to log into the CAP60 database. Put in your login name and your password and select the login key. Then you're going to select the CAP tab located on the top of the home screen. In the option menu on the left-hand side of the page, you're going to select the Search Client option. Begin to include the client information into the fields. Remember, the agency is always going to be Help New Mexico CAP when dealing with OEE clients. Include the center name and start to fill in the client information. You still have the option to put in the program, the caseworker, the status, or the year if you have them available. Since we're going to consider this client to be new, we're just going to put in the information that we may have if we have a new client. The social security number or birth date are not required, but if you have them, it's helpful to put them in. Don't forget to put the county, state, city, and zip if you have it. Sometimes you may only have the first and last name to look. The more information you have, the better. Select the search key, and if no results show up below, that means the client is not in our database and we need to do a brand new intake. Now let's search the non-client contacts list from the front desk. Start by selecting the Add Household option located in the menu on the left-hand side of the page. Then you're going to select Add client from the front desk. You'll notice there's a list of clients that have been previously input into the non-client contact list. Go ahead and add the first and last name of the client you're searching for. Select the filter key. If the client is in our system, the name will show up here. You can hit select and the client information will become available. Include any required fields, which are all indicated in pink, and then click Save. This will bring us into the new client intake process. Here are some tips for getting the best search results in the CAP60 database. 1. Include as much information as possible. Remember the CAP60 motto, the more information, the better. 2. Use the All option for the following drop-down fields: county, agency, and center name. This would aid you in generating more client information and minimize your search time. Step 2. Add the client's personal and household information into the new client intake fields. Let's add a new head of household entry. To start, select the Add Household option located in the menu on the left-hand side of the page. Then select Add Client. This will bring you to the Add Household Member screen. All of the required fields are going to be indicated in pink, or they'll have a small CSPG icon on the left-hand side of them. Start by putting in all the basic agency information. Remember, Help New Mexico CAP is going to be selected for all OEE clients. Then move on to the household member information. Not all of this data is required, but remember our CAP60 model. The more information you include, the better. Don't forget to add the relationship to household member, birth date, social security number, and gender. You'll notice the links next to the social security number and gender options. Verify social security number and check duplicates. We'll look at these further in the training. Once completed, move on to the contact information. Remember to include as much contact information as possible. If the client provides a personal email, make sure to check the Place on Email List option. Although we do not necessarily have an email list at this time, we may in the future. Then move on to the CSPG demographic information. Some of these questions can be tricky. Just remember to include all of the information that the client provides. Don't forget to include the health insurance and the insurance provider. Ours is VA, which unfortunately is not in the insurance provider drop-down list. Move on to the characteristics. This is another section where there's a lot of information that is not required. Remember to fill in as much as possible. If your client is a veteran, fill out the veteran information fields. For eligible spouse, we're going to select no because our client is not married and they are the ones receiving the benefits. Include the service start date and the service end date if you have them. And if the client is receiving disability benefits, check that option and include the percentage. Now we're going to add comments into the comment section. Remember, this information can be valuable, especially if another Help New Mexico representative is assisting your client in the future. Now we'll move on to the characteristics. The turn-off warnings for this household member option should only be used after you have completed all of the entries for their characteristics. The deceased option should never be used unless indicated by a supervisor. Make sure to include characteristics for every household member. And of course, remember to save your entry. Now let's add family members to the household. Once you have saved the client information, you'll notice that the family information screen changes up a little bit. Here at the top, you'll notice that we already have the family and the number of family members in the household. Click Add Family Member to create a new entry. You'll notice that a lot of this screen looks the same as adding the initial household member. The required information is still indicated in pink or with the CSBG link. Fill out all of the client's required personal information, including the relationship to household member, which is now the girlfriend. You're going to include all the same required information that you did with the head of household member. Remember, the more information that you include, the better it is for our reporting. Although we got the primary contact information from the head of household, you still want to include the contact information for any additional household members if necessary. This includes the personal email address as well. And of course, selecting the Place on Email List option. Select the education level for this client, and continue by including all the other CSBG demographic information. This includes the health insurance provider, which is Medicaid. This client is not disabled, and the ethnicity information. The next step would be to include the insurance provider from the drop-down list, which is also Medicaid. Now the characteristics information. Remember, it is not required to get all this information. The only thing required here is legal status and marital status. However, the more information, the better. Because this client is not a veteran and is not married to the head of household, she's not an eligible spouse. She also does not require any more veteran information. Add notes in the comments section if necessary, and move down to the Characteristics and Eligibility menu. Remember, it is important to include as many traits as possible when it comes to the client. In this situation, our client is unemployed. We have a Social Security number for them. Then you want to go ahead and save the information and continue to the next family member. If you'll notice, the number of household members listed here should match the list of household members at the bottom of the family information screen. You can open any of these family members by clicking on the person ID next to them. Let's take a look at one of the other household members. We just included Mary. Let's look at Johnny Brooks. As you can tell by the birth date, Johnny is a whole lot younger. He doesn't require as much information as his other family members. You still want to include all required information for this specific household member and comments if necessary. And don't forget to add characteristics and eligibility for every household member. In this case, they're unemployed, youth, and we have a Social Security number. Time to review some of the content on the household member entry page. Note, it is important to remember that the not assigned option must never be used for required fields in CAP60. Let's look at a few of the drop-down menus. First, the Help New Mexico CAP option must be used for all OEE clients. This is the only option that we're utilizing throughout the agency at this time. Next, the Relationship to Head of Household drop-down. These days, families are very dynamic. This drop-down includes a wide array of options to fit your client's specific needs. For each client, it is important that you select the correct relationship options for reporting purposes. Another important drop-down is the highest education level completed. It is important to ask your client this question so that we can provide assistance through our programs. Help New Mexico strives to help our clients become self-sufficient, and furthering client education is one of the ways we can do that. Be sure to collect the correct client education level for each member of the household. Now let's take a moment to review the hyperlink options. There are two hyperlinks in the household information section: Verify Social Security Number and Check Duplicates. The Verify Social Security Number option is currently not available for use, but the Check Duplicates options will search CAP60 for the duplicate clients. Using this function will assist you in removing the duplicates or updating the client information. The Characteristics and Eligibilities box is available so you can check program characteristics that are specific for each household. Selecting these options also determines eligibility for other programs, so it is important to include everything that applies. The turn-off warnings for this household and deceased option should only be used when directed by a supervisor. Please remember, the Social Security number checkbox must be checked for every family member with a Social Security number. The only exception is for new child that has not yet been issued documents. Now let's learn how to edit the family information. First, you'll notice that after you put in all of the client information and save it, the screens look a lot different. One, all the family information is listed at the top of the screen, and all the household members that you've just entered are listed at the bottom. Form warnings, family warnings, and person warnings are all indicators that we'll go into a little bit further in the training. select the Edit Family Information link to enter the family information screen. As you'll notice, a lot of the fields have already been filled in based on the information you completed during the intake process. Make sure that Help New Mexico CAP is selected as the agency, and make sure that the number of the household has been updated. If you'll notice, there's pink options where required information has not been satisfied. The family type dropdown can be a little confusing. Make sure you select the specific family type for that household. In this case, it's a 2-parent household. Also include the housing information, whether the client is homeless, rents, owns, or is staying with a family member. All of the residence information is usually pre-filled, unless the client is homeless. If they are homeless, select if they have certification of homelessness or are self-certified. This depends on the documents that they provide. The homeless type is not required. Then move on to the contact information. This information is usually pre-filled based on the information that you've put in during the intake. Include any additional comments and save the file. You have now updated the family information. Now let's verify that we've submitted all the family characteristics and needs into this household. To start, make sure you're in the family information screen. You'll notice that there's a characteristics option and a needs option in the menu. Go ahead and start by collecting characteristics. You'll notice that the family information is listed at the top. Make sure you select the Social Security number box and save the information. Once completed, go ahead and select the needs option. Make sure to include all of the needs that were brought up during the intake process with that household. In this particular situation, you needed assistance with food, assistance with rent, finding employment, and utilities assistance. Make sure once you clicked all the boxes that you hit save. Let's take a moment to review some of the content from the family information screen. The other or unspecified options should not be used at any time. Using these options has a negative effect on our reporting data. Any questions regarding these drop-down options should be directed to a supervisor. Now let's look at some of the drop-down menus. The family type menu, located in the family information screen, includes the following options: not assigned, extended family, grandparent raising children, mixed adults with children, other, single parent female, single parent male, single person, 2 adults, no children, 2-parent household, and unspecified. Remember not to confuse single parent and single person households. Be sure that the option you select is specific to your client's situation. Most of our clients will fit into one of these categories. The housing drop-down menu includes the following options: not assigned, homeless, other, temporary quarters, unspecified, own, and rent. This is also on the family information screen. Remember not to use the not assigned option and pay close attention to your client's household information. Now let's look at the if homeless option, which is located in the residence information field. There are many forms of documentation that can be used to determine homelessness. Some examples include a letter from a caseworker, a letter from a shelter, a time-stamped eviction notice, or a personal statement. If your client provides any of this documentation, you can select the self-certified option. Some entities actually provide certification of homelessness forms. If your client provides one of these forms, you can select the certification of homelessness option. Homeless type will always be not assigned and is not required. Whatever option you choose, include the date provided by the client. It's time to review the Family Information Warning Indicators. These warnings display at the top of the Family Information screen. They are here to guide us to potential errors that must be reviewed prior to completing the entry. Here are the meanings associated with these indicators. Form warnings. These are caused by past due signed authorization forms. Family warnings. These are caused by checked family characteristics. Person warnings. These are caused by checked client characteristics. You can clear these warnings by clicking the warning symbol and removing them manually, or while you are completing the auditing process, which is preferred. We will review this more later in the training. Finally, let's talk about the checkbox at the bottom of the comment section. This question is based on a performance matrix that we are not utilizing at this time. This may change in the future. Selecting this option will not affect your entry. Now it's time to add the employment information for this household. You can start by selecting the employment option in the menu located on the left-hand side of the page. This will bring you to the employment screen. You'll notice that there are no entries for this household. Select the Add key and it'll bring you to a new employment page. Start by selecting the client that you are including employment information for. Put in the occupation type and whether or not they are a current active employee at this location. In this case, it's no. Include the dates that they work, the current employment status, which in this case is unemployed, and the employment type. My client was only working 25 hours a week, which is part-time. You can also include the reason for leaving. My client had a death in the family. Continue to include all the employer information. If the client still knows the supervisor name, include that as well. Even though not required, it's always great to include the phone number and hours per week that were worked by the employees during their employment. Include a brief description of the employee's job duties in their position during employment. You then want to include the weeks unemployed out of the last 26 weeks. Ask your client if they are attending a secondary, vocational, technical, or academic school full-time. If they are between terms, ask if they intend to return in the future. You can then move on to including the schedule that the client worked during employment. Try to be as accurate as possible, and don't leave out any information that the client has provided. It is okay if the client doesn't necessarily remember their entire work schedule. The Created By option will not allow you to fill anything in, and it is not required. Always remember to save your entry. Hit Save in New if you have another entry. Now let's add the family eligibility income information. You can start by selecting Family Eligibility Income option, located in the menu on the left-hand side of the page. This will bring you to the Family Eligibility Income screen. Select Quick Add if you want to add multiple entries at once. It's better to select Add. That way you can include the family information one by one and not neglect any client information. Start by putting in the family member who's receiving the income, the type of income they're receiving, in this case it's a benefit, and whether or not they are actively receiving it. You can select the income source, which is SSI/SSP for this particular client, and the amount that they are receiving. Don't forget the interval, which is how many times they are receiving that. The date we received the information, and the date that we verified the information. Employment is always going to be not assigned, but that's okay because it's not required. Select whether or not you verified the income and how it was verified in this drop-down. In this case, we got a hard copy and included it in the client's file. The Entered By/On option is not required and will not allow you to type anything into the field. There is an average calculator and an income calculator available just in case you need to calculate the client's income by hand. Don't forget to save the information. If you're entering some more income information, select Save and New. Then continue to put in the income information for the next client you've selected. In this case, it's Mary Brooks now. She receives TANF benefits. Again, you're going to fill out all the required income information. And although it's not required, it's always helpful to include a brief note in the comments section indicating how you verified that client's income. Always remember to save your entries. Once you have completed this, you'll notice that the income information will display at the bottom of the screen. Now we need to check the client's program eligibility status. This information is located in the Case Information option in the menu on the left-hand side of the page. Once you're in the Case Information screen, select Eligibility. This will bring you into the eligibility screen. Put in the application date and what you're checking for, which in this case will be programs. Select the household member from the drop-down menu. As you can see, this will pull up a detailed list of Help New Mexico programs that we have to offer and whether or not the client is eligible for any of them. You can select different household members from the drop-down list, and it will pull up the same information for them. This will help you to provide all of the programs that Help New Mexico has to offer to our clients. Let's review what we've learned in Part 1 of the client intake process. Step 1. Log into the CAP60 database and search for the client in the existing client or front desk list. Searching for the client to make sure that they're not entered in our system reduces duplicate entries. Step 2. Add the client's personal and household information into the new client intake fields. This process includes adding the new head of household information, the family information, family members, family characteristics and needs, employment information, eligibility income information, referrals, and of course checking the program eligibility status of the household. Step 3. Add case information, run the audit function, and save the new client entry. This part of the process will be reviewed during Part 2 of the client intake training. This is a review of Part 1 of the client intake process. And always remember our CAP60 model. The more information you include, the better. Thank you for attending Part 1 of the CAP60 client intake training. Please remember to complete Part 2 of this training and then submit your signed acknowledgement form to the Training and Development Department at your earliest convenience. Have a great day.